And so when I received the cipher, I have to say I was, shocked.
Right.
I mean, a prime minister does not get a communique from his ambassador saying that the official from this other country is telling the ambassador that unless they get rid of the prime minister, there would be consequences of Pakistan. So, I mean, who would not be shocked?
Right.
I mean, but then when I wondered that how could the ambassador couldn't get rid of me. So, the Foreign Office can't get rid of the prime minister. So who was this meant for? And it was clear it was meant for General Bajwa. The cipher was meant for him. That, it was, I should be gotten rid of in a vote of no confidence. And the next day, the vote of no confidence was tabled in the National Assembly.
And,
right.
Literally the next day, right?
Exactly the next day. And within weeks, the government was gone.
That's amazing. So just for people listening, just to make sure that the point drives home, there is a cipher, a letter from U.S. diplomatic officials saying, have a vote of no confidence to get rid of Prime Minister Khan, basically overthrow the government, or there will be consequences. And literally the next day is when this vote was proposed.
Cipher means, just for the audience, cipher is a secret codified message given by the ambassador to the Foreign Office. So it is a conversation, official conversation, which is recorded. And then that conversation is sent through this coded message, which is called a cipher. It is to the Foreign Office, and of course it reaches the Prime Minister. So the WikiLeaks, what was WikiLeaks? It was this communication became exposed. And that's what the leak was about, the conversation between the US ambassadors and what they were sending to the State Department. So that's what called a cipher. So
absolutely.
So yes, exactly. I mean, this conversation was reported to me through the cipher, and yes, that's what it said.
So, Mr. Prime Minister, I know we're kind of pressed for time, so I want to make sure I get the most important questions and material out there. And just to say it, just as an American, I'll say it seems to me like glaring hypocrisy on the part of the Biden administration that's constantly complaining about alleged meddling from other countries to take the step of issuing a cipher that's basically giving an ultimatum: get rid of this democratically elected leader or there will be consequences. Now, I have to get into something that could be interesting, could be controversial, but the public really wants to know your position on it. I know that there's this individual called Donald Liu, who is one of the people associated with this cipher, the diplomatic official. Given his ranking as the undersecretary, I believe, or assistant secretary for Central Asian, South Asian affairs, the reality is that someone like Donald Liu would only be a messenger boy. He's not devising this policy in his own right. And many people have perhaps logically speculated that a woman named Victoria Nuland, who is Liu's boss, might have a more active role in this. And Victoria Nuland is a pretty notorious operative in terms of regime change, and experts agree, for instance, that she was instrumental in the Maidan revolt in Ukraine. And just to make matters more interesting, which you probably know already, but you've been a very vocal critic of America's disastrous war on terror, not just under Bush, but the drone strike policy under Obama. Now, if I could give the audience one guess as to who the State Department spokeswoman was defending Obama's drone strike policies, it was none other than Victoria Nuland. So are you familiar with this possibility? Does the name strike a bell? Do you think that your opposition to the war on terror and the war in Iraq. Victoria Nuland's husband is one of the intellectual architects of the war in Iraq, of which you've been a vocal critic. Do you think this specific element of the American security state might bear some additional responsibility for what's happened to you?
Well, Darren, I don't know the Americans, the officials. I mean, I basically know what I've just told you about the cipher and a conversation between Donald Lu and our ambassador. How far it went up, I have no idea. I mean, who else was involved? I don't know. So I can't really comment on the names of Victoria and other people who you've mentioned. But about war on terror, the reason I'm simple. Why was I a critic of that? There are two areas which concerned us. One was the war on terror in Pakistan, with the drone strikes and sort of the drone strikes on our side of the border of Afghanistan. And then the other one was the whole Afghan adventure, which I never quite understood what were the aims. I mean, what did the US, what did they want to achieve from invasion of Afghanistan? And especially once Osama bin Laden was killed, then what was the reason of staying in Afghanistan? Because these ideas about bringing democracy or liberating the Afghan women, I mean, there was no clear. I never understood what was going to be victory in the US in Afghanistan. But in Pakistan, it created havoc. There were over 400 drone strikes in Pakistan. And it's the only time an ally is bombed, by another country. I mean, we were an ally of the US in the war on terror. There were over 400 drone strikes. And I kept opposing it because it was senseless. All it was doing was, it was creating more militants. Because collateral damage was the reason why the Taliban in Afghanistan, their numbers increased. And collateral damage was the reason why the TTP, the Pakistani Taliban, kept the militants kept growing. So it actually exacerbated the situation. It didn't solve anything. It just created hatred, and anyone who had relatives lost in a drone attack would go and join the militants. Because that whole area, the border area of Pakistan and Afghanistan, what was called our tribal areas. I mean, when you had a drone attack in a village, clearly in trying to kill one or two militants, it also killed a lot of innocent people. So in trying to avenge the deaths, they would then become part of the militants and take revenge against Pakistan's security forces. So we lost 80,000 people in that war on terror. I mean, which ally of the US would have paid such a heavy cost for becoming an ally? 80,000 Pakistanis died, over $100 billion lost to the economy. So I opposed simply for that reason, because, I'm a Pakistani, and my first thing should be to preserve Pakistani lives and Pakistani property and damage to this country. And we were the collateral damage of the Afghan war.
Right. No, I think it's a tragedy not only for Pakistan there, it's also a tragedy because it wasn't even in America's interest. And I think most American people realize that now in the aftermath of just what a disaster and costly disaster in terms of money and lives the Afghanistan war was, and hope Americans learn from this. And I think they have. I know you're pressed for time. I know your folks are saying you got to go. So before, I'd just like to say, first of all, I'd like to thank the great a founding member of the PTI, Mr. Jahangir and Ramshah Afridi, for making this discussion possible. I'd like to thank you, your, remarkable courage. I know your position is in Pakistan, but your courage and the fact that you are all in, you're putting it all on the line for your vision, for your cause, for your country, for your people. And that's inspiring to everybody that sees it. And I know that you have a lot of love and support from America and from Americans, despite whatever may have happened with a certain segment of corrupt and really criminal elements of the American national security community. So I know you have to go. So I'd just like to thank you and say it's been an honor, and we're praying for you in America and hope everything resolves well for you and for your country.
Thank you, Darren. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you.